Power is a central theme in J.R.R. Tolkien's The Lord of the Rings. The primary antagonist is Sauron, an ancient spirit which seeks to conquer and dominate the whole of Middle-earth and everything within it. Though an earlier defeat has left him in a weakened state, Sauron can achieve total victory if he just acquires a magical golden ring. This is the Ring of Power, and it will enable Sauron to restore his lost strength, which will give him the ability to destroy his enemies and subjugate the free peoples to his cruelty and malice. To prevent the Dark Lord from gaining the power to rule the world, the protagonists of the story embark on a quest to destroy the ring, the destruction of which will result in the final defeat of Sauron. Their mission is constantly in peril, as the servants of Sauron hunt for the ring, while his armies are sent to vanquish those who oppose him. Yet, the biggest danger facing the quest is, in fact, the ring itself. It has an agency of its own, always seeking to return to its master, Sauron. To achieve this end, the ring evokes, intensifies, and thereby manipulates a person's desires so that they usurp the power that is not theirs to have. It is, thus, symbolic of the threat posed by the desire for power. The Case of Smeagle, also known as Gollum, clearly illustrates the peril of the ring. One day the hobbit went fishing with his friend Deagle. While Smeagle was nosing about the riverbank, a great fish took Deagle's hook and dragged him into the water. On the riverbed, Deagle found the beautiful golden ring and brought it with him back to the surface. Smeagle was enthralled by the glinting treasure and asked his friend to give him the ring because "It's my birthday, my love, and I wants it." Deagle refused, and so Smeagle strangled him to death because the golden ring looked bright and beautiful. In time, Gollum lost the ring, his desire for it so strong that he scoured Middle-earth to reclaim the trinket he both loved and hated. As he crawls towards Frodo and his companion Samwise, the intention of murder once more is in Gollum's heart, as he can be heard saying, "Where is it? Where is it? My precious, my precious! It is ours, it is, and we wants it. The thieves, the thieves, the filthy little thieves! Where are they with my precious? Curse them! We hates them!" The ring awakes in the creature Gollum an overpowering desire for its possession. This primal urge leads him to claim the ring as his own. Yet, the ring is not rightfully his. Initially, Deagle had the right to keep the ring because he was the one who found it, and he was under no obligation to give it to Smeagol. He'd already given Smeagol a birthday present. He didn't need to give him another one. Moreover, Gollum knows that Sauron is the true master of the ring. He's been dragged to Mordor. He's been tortured there by his servants. Burning lust for the ring overwhelms Gollum, so that he usurps its rightful owners, killing Deagle and calling the magical object "my precious" when he has no right to do so. It leads him to take what is not his own as his own. The ring poses a threat not only to the small and ill-natured, it corrupts the hearts of the noble, brave and strong. The mighty warrior Boromir, a military hero and bulwark against the forces of darkness, fell victim to the sway of the ring. Confronting Frodo in the forests near the Falls of Rhoris, he explains that "we of Minas Tirith have been staunch through long years of trial. We do not desire the power of wizard lords, only strength to defend ourselves, strength in a just cause. And behold, in our need, chance bring to light the ring of power. It is a gift, I say, a gift to the foes of Mordor. It is mad not to use it, to use the power of the enemy against him. The ring would give me power of command. How I would drive the hosts of Mordor, and all men would flock to my banner. Initially, Boromir wants the ring because of its instrumental value. It will give him the power to defend the country he loves and serves, Gondor. However, the Ring of Power uses Boromir's valorous patriotism to corrupt him. For, when Frodo refuses to lend Boromir the ring, in a fit of anger the warrior remonstrates that it is not yours save by unhappy chance. It might have been mine. It should have been mine. Give it to me! Before attacking Frodo with a raging fire in his eyes. No longer does Boromir want the ring as a means to defending Gondor. Now its possession is an end in itself. And such possession, even in pursuit of a plan to defeat Sauron, is an act of usurpation. As Frodo reminds Boromir before the latter's villainous outburst, the Council of Elrond laid it upon me to bear it, the ring. Boromir is driven by enflamed passion for the ring to take it as his own when it is not his to have, to wield a power that is not his to possess, and this leads to his acts of violence against its rightful bearer. Even characters who are able to resist the call of the ring are afflicted by its temptations. Samwise Gamgee faced such a predicament outside the fortress of Cirith Ungol, on the border of Mordor. His master, Frodo, had been taken prisoner by the orcs of the castle, and it seemed to Sam nigh on impossible for him, a small hobbit, to storm the keep and rescue Frodo. His mind was drawn to the ring's ability to make its wearer invisible, as this power would allow him to sneak into Cirith Ungol undetected. In this moment of decision, he felt that he had from now on only two choices: to forbear the ring, though it would torment him, or to claim it and challenge the power that sat in its dark hold beyond the Valley of Shadows. Already the ring tempted him, gnawing at his will and reason. Wild fantasies arose in his mind, and he saw Samwise the Strong, hero of the age, striding with a flaming sword across the darkened land, and armies flocking to his call as he marched to overthrow of Barad-dûr. And then all the clouds rolled away, and the white sun shone, and at his command the Vale of Gorgoroth became a garden of flowers and trees and brought forth fruit. He had only to put on the ring and claim it for his own, and all this could be. The ring tempts Sam, like Boromir, through its instrumental value. It promises him that by becoming its master, Sam will be able to ensure the victory of good over evil. Moreover, it will allow him to bring Mordor into conformity with his tastes. By his command alone, the barren plains will possess rich and abundant life. Thus, by using the ring as a mean to his ends, Sam could impose his will on the world, remaking it according to his likes and dislikes. However, Sam is able to resist the ring's temptations by reminding himself that such power is not his to have. The one small garden of a free gardener was all his need and due, not a garden swollen to a realm. His own hands to use, not the hands of others to command. The realm of Gorgoroth is not his to remake in accordance with his inclinations, and so to enforce his desires upon it would be to usurp its rightful ruler. A garden is his domain of sovereignty, a space where his tastes can be rightfully implemented. Beyond the danger of the ring, the temptation to usurp power poses great peril to many characters in Middle-earth, particularly the wise and the rulers. Saruman the White falls prey to this vice. Head of the Order of Wizards, symbolized by his white robe, and leader of the White Council, Saruman is tasked with mobilizing the resistance against Sauron. He undertakes this vocation by studying the history of the Rings of Power, but such research draws out of him his darker tendencies. When Gandalf the Grey arrives in Isengard to consult his leader regarding the Ring of Power, he is met by the self-described Saruman the Wise, Saruman Ringmaker, Saruman of many colours. The wizard, wearing a new robe woven of many colours that shimmered and changed hue, leaving the eye bewildered. The abandonment of his white clothes for those of the rainbow is symbolic of Saruman's betrayal of his vocation. Forsaking his prior calling as an enemy of Sauron, he now tells Gandalf that the enemy's forces will be victorious, and so it would be wiser to join the Dark Power than resist it. For through Sauron, the wizards can draw the world to knowledge, rule and order, imposing their wills upon Middle-earth. But, in the end, the desire to use power as a means to an end is supplanted by a desire for power as an end in itself. Saruman encourages Gandalf to tell him where the Ring of Power is, so that then the power would pass to us, or to him. Before a steward of everything good, Saruman now desires to be sovereign over Middle-earth, and bring it into conformity with his tastes. Boromir's father, Denethor, also usurps power that does not belong to him. At their first meeting, Denethor explains to Gandalf that, as the Lord of Gondor, to him there is no higher purpose in the world, as it now stands, than the good of Gondor. And the rule of Gondor, my lord, is mine, and no other man's, unless the king should come again. This seemingly benign statement indicates Denethor's status as steward of Gondor, presiding over the kingdom until a rightful heir returns and proves the legitimacy of their claim. However, Denethor's words have a darker meaning, brought out into the open as Gandalf and Pippin attempt to stop Denethor from killing himself and his son Faramir. In a state of utter, abject despair, Denethor accuses Gandalf of seeking to supplant him by bringing to Gondor this Ranger of the North, Aragorn, and so he will not step down to be the dotard chamberlain of an upstart. Even were his claim proved to me, still he comes but of the line of Isildur. I will not bow to such a one, last of a ragged house, long bereft of lordship and dignity. Motivated by pride, Denethor outright refuses to acknowledge the kingship of Aragorn, in so doing usurping the king's power to rule Gondor, taking it as his own. His rebellion against the proper order is manifest in his actions. Gandalf rebukes him. "Authority is not given to you, steward of Gondor, to order the hour of your death. All the characters discussed thus far are pale imitations compared to the absolute evil of Sauron. Though initially a servant of good, by the time of the Lord of the Rings, he has become the dark power in Middle-earth. With no pretext of using power for the benefit of others, his ambition is to rule all, using violent force to subjugate the dominions of the world, or else annihilate them, bending the courses of all things according to his cruel and vengeful tastes. His desire to be sovereign over everyone and every place is the ultimate usurpation of power that is not his to possess. From what or whom Sauron attempts to rob the right to rule Middle-earth is only hinted at in the pages of The Lord of the Rings. The clearest example comes when Gandalf explains to Frodo how it was that the ring left Gollum. It was the strangest event in the whole history of the ring so far. Bilbo's arrival just at that time, and putting his hand on it, blindly, in the dark. There was more than one power at work, Frodo. The ring was trying to get back to its master. It had slipped from Isildur's hand and betrayed him. Then, when a chance came, it caught poor Deagle, and he was murdered. And after that, Gollum, and it had devoured him. It could make no further use of him. He was too small and mean, and as long as it stayed with him, he would never leave his deep pool again. So now, when its master was awake once more and sending out his dark thought from Mirkwood, it abandoned Gollum, only to be picked up by the most unlikely person imaginable, Bilbo from the Shire. Behind that, there was something else at work, beyond any design of the ring-maker. I can put it no plainer than by saying that Bilbo was meant to find the ring, and not by its maker. In which case, you also were meant to have it, and that may be an encouraging thought. Gandalf's words indicate that Bilbo's finding of the Ring of Power was not a mere accident. Nor was it caused by Sauron, or indeed the ring itself. Rather, it was another power who worked through the circumstances and free actions of the characters. No being forced the ring to leave Gollum. No being forced or gave to Bilbo the ring. He just picked it up, and he was in that situation, in that circumstance, following all the events that had taken place prior in The Hobbit. It was the other power, a providential power, capable of directing the events of history in accordance with its designs, through, rather than against, the natural courses and free actions of Middle-earth, which was in play. In his letters, Tolkien called this other power the writer of the story, by which I do not mean myself, and also the authority. This author, supernatural author, gives life to elves, men, dwarves, and all peoples, cultures, and places, thinking into being every person and every event that takes place in Middle-earth. Thus, the power's will is manifested in all that happens in The Lord of the Rings. Every page is filled with that which is created by and conforms with the writer of the story's tastes, such as when the members of the Council of Elrond are called to attend it, though not by Elrond. When the quest of destroying the ring is appointed to Frodo. Or even when, in the moment of absolute catastrophe, that Gollum has taken the ring from Frodo in the heart of Mount Doom, the foul wretch slips off the edge into the lava below, completing the quest. In a non-competitive way, this providential power has created and rules Middle-earth as its sovereign, all taking place naturally and freely, according to its will. Therefore, Sauron's desire to dominate all life is an aim to steal a position of absolute power that belongs not to himself, but to what Gandalf calls the other power. Yet, whereas the other power works through providence, as a creature, Sauron is unable to direct the world through his will. He cannot act through the free actions of others. He cannot create a being to act in a certain way. Thus, he must use force to either destroy or enslave other people so that they will be conformed to his tastes. Neither can he create life or new life. He merely imitates the creations of the other power. Orcs, the descendants of tortured and mutilated elves. Trolls, imitations of the tree shepherds, the Ents. Envious of the other power's right and ability to create and rule, Sauron spitefully enjoys deforming and subjugating the other power's world through the exercise of his cruelty. As Gandalf warns Frodo, hobbits as miserable slaves would please him far more than hobbits happy and free. There is such a thing as malice and revenge. Revenge understood both as against Bilbo for frustrating the plans of the ring, but also against the other power's creative providential rule of Middle-earth. Evil, then, consists in taking power that is not yours to possess. It is an act of usurpation which violates the natural order, a rebellion against the other power's providential plan. Whether it be a small individual like Smeagol wanting a shiny birthday present, a heroic warrior aiming to defend his country, or even an ancient spirit wanting to rule the world, the desire to possess what is not theirs to own, to rule what is not theirs to rule, to break the natural laws of Middle-earth, is what constitutes the essence of evil in the Lord of the Rings. Such violations of the natural order manifest in physiognomy. Starting life as a normal-looking hobbit, possession of the ring has left Smeagol as extremely thin and wiry, with black skin, flat feet, long thin hands, and large pale eyes, while his life has been unnaturally extended by hundreds of years. Orcs are monstrous-looking creatures, ape-like arms swinging while they scuttle on their bandy legs, vicious fangs marking their horrific complexions. Violation of the natural order in the pursuit of undue power also desecrates the environment. When entering the hateful land of Mordor, the land of Sauron's dominion, everything seemed to Frodo and Sam as ruinous and dead, a desert burned and choked. Saruman's dereliction of his duties and his unrighteous desires for absolute power led him to defile the ancient forest of Fangorn, Treebeard recounting that he and his foul folk are making havoc now. Down on the borders they are felling trees, good trees. Some of the trees they just cut down and leave to rot. Orc mischief that. But most are hewn up and carried off to feed the fires of Orthanc. There is always smoke rising from Isengard these days. Ultimately, as the natural order allows life to flourish, evil is a degradation of being, a decline into nothingness. Describing the effect of the One Ring on Bilbo, Gandalf explains to Frodo that a mortal who keeps one of the great rings does not die, but he does not grow or obtain more life. He merely continues until at last every minute is a weariness. And if he often uses the ring to make himself invisible, he fades. He becomes in the end invisible permanently, and walks in twilight under the eye of the dark power that rules the rings. Yes, sooner or later, the dark power will devour him. This is the fate of the Nazgul, the Ringwraiths, kings of men gifted rings by Sauron that ensnared them to his will. Their servitude has left them completely invisible, and they have no agency of their own, only doing the bidding of their master. In the end, though, these evil creatures are reduced to nothingness. When the ring is destroyed, the soldiers fighting at the Black Gate of Mordor see the death of Sauron, and it seemed to them that, black against the pall of cloud, there rose a huge shape of shadow, impenetrable, lightning-crowned, filling all the sky. Enormous, it reared above the world, and stretched out towards them a vast, threatening hand, terrible, but impotent. For even as it leaned over them, a great wind took it, and it was all blown away, and passed. And then a hush fell. Rebellion against the other power's providence, violation of the natural order, results in non-being. When the natural order is restored, and those who have the right to power wield it, the world is healed. Theoden, king of Rohan, embodies this reality. Under the snare of Saruman's lackey Grima Wormtongue, Theoden has been reduced to a man so bent with age that he seemed almost a dwarf, suffering from dark dreams and a despairing stupor which incapacitated his leadership, bewitched by the leechcraft of his advisor. This had left Rohan in a pitiful state, unable to defend itself against the incursions of Uruk-hai under the service of Saruman. Gandalf the White frees Theoden's mind and gives him a renewed sense of hope, a vision of light. The effects work themselves out in his rejuvenated body. He cast aside his staff and drew himself up to his full height, standing tall and straight. As Gandalf spoke, Theoden's eyes continued to shine brighter and brighter, and as he drew his sword, the old king gave a great cry, his voice ringing clear as he chanted in the tongue of Rohan, "Arise now! Arise, riders of Theoden! Dire deeds awake! Let horse be bridled, horns be sounded! Forth, Eorengers!" His guards looked at their lord in amazement, and then as one man they drew their swords and laid them at his feet. "Command us," they said. Return to vitality and vigour. Theoden is now capable of rousing his people to defend the realm against Saruman. The natural order is restored. Aragorn's ascension to the throne of Gondor restores its people and land. Following the battle of the Pelennor Fields, the heir of Isildur visits the city of Minas Tirith to tend to the wounded. He looks after Faramir, who is in a coma and approaching death. Taking 2 leaves of kingsfoil, he laid them in his hands, crushed them, and cast the leaves into a bowl of steaming water. The vapours filled the room with a fragrance like a memory of dewy mornings of unshadowed sun, in some land of which the fair world in spring is itself but a fleeting memory. And Faramir awakes from the shadows. Later, Gandalf leads Aragorn into the mountains behind Minas Tirith, where he finds a sapling of one of the holy trees, the Trees of Light, and it replaces the dead white tree of the city. He also establishes peace with those men who served Sauron but have surrendered, those of Harad, pardoning the Easterlings, and he frees the slaves of Sauron, giving them the lands in the south of Mordor as their own. Such restoration is indicated by Aragorn's name, Envinyatar, which means the Renewer. The return of the king in Gondor heals people, society, and the environment. Using the ring, then, is dangerous because, as Frodo presciently declares, what is done with it turns to evil. It does not matter if one's intentions are good, such as Boromir's, seeking to use the ring's power to achieve some greater benefit, or are thoroughly evil, like Gollum's desire for possession of the ring as an end in itself. For whoever takes the ring as their own seeks to bend the world's course into conformity with their will, thereby taking a power which is not theirs to possess. They usurp the right of others to possess and rule their rightful domains, thereby violating the natural order. Thus, the use of the ring is always evil, as it is a rebellion against the other power's providential design, whereas the use of legitimate power heals the world. This is why the temptation to usurp power, even for a good end, results in corruption. As Elrond explains to Boromir, if any of the wise should with this ring overthrow the Lord of Mordor, using his own arts, he would then set himself on Sauron's throne, and yet another Dark Lord would appear. Attempting to take power that is not their own, the wielder of the ring would seek to bring all into conformity with their will in the name of the good, destroying or subjugating all the world. In time, they would slide from using the ring as a means to doing good, to pursuing absolute power as an end in itself. Their rebellion against the providential power and breaking of the natural order would result in the same cruelty and degradation of their servants, of people, of the world, characteristic of Sauron's reign of terror. Yet, the climax of The Lord of the Rings paints a gloomy picture of the human predicament. As Frodo stands in Mount Doom, ready to cast the ring into the molten furnace below, he addresses Sam with a clear and powerful voice. "I have come," he said, "but I do not choose now to do what I came to do. I will not do this deed. The ring is mine." And suddenly, as he set it on his finger, he vanished from Sam's sight. Frodo unequivocally failed in his quest to destroy the ring. Having borne it to the very heart of Mordor, in the hour of decision, the ring broke his will, and he gave in to the temptation to wrongfully claim it and its power as his own. While from the safety of the Shire Bilbo, with all of Gandalf's help, is able to give up the ring, or Sam and Galadriel can refuse it over a relatively short time, Frodo has to carry this power for a long time, on a journey from the Shire to Mordor. This is not to be held against him. He held out longer than anyone else could have, and his defeat is akin to being physically beaten by a stronger opponent. The taste of power breeds a desire for more, an urge to eliminate competition and subsume all under one's domain, to increasingly reduce the sphere under one's tastes. Ultimately, Frodo's failure shows that when it comes to relinquishing the usurpation of power, mortal creatures will be unable to resist such evil. No matter how righteous and strong, they will inevitably seize that which is not theirs and thereby violate the natural order. This truly is a dire situation. Creatures should not seek to rule that which is not theirs to rule, for doing so is an act of rebellion against the other power. But we will inevitably seek illegitimate sovereignty over domains not ours to control. It would seem, then, that humanity is doomed to an endless cycle of dark lords, one rising after another, as even the virtuous ruler will break the natural order and seek more power than is rightfully theirs. One might be forgiven for wondering whether the issue, then, is not so much about restoring the natural order as being a friend, rather than an enemy, to the ruling power. However, despite Frodo's failure at the crack of doom, his mission was a success. The ring was destroyed, in large part down to the forgiveness, mercy and pity Frodo showed Smeagol. When he and Sam had captured the wicked villain, the hobbits discuss what they must do with Gollum, who was trying to kill them. Sam proposes tying him up, so that he cannot come after them again, perhaps even executing him, as Smeagol may try to murder them in the future, if let loose. At that moment, Frodo remembers a conversation between Gandalf and himself about Bilbo's decision not to murder Gollum, and how it may have prevented Sauron from finding out that Frodo had the ring. What a pity Bilbo did not stab the vile creature when he had a chance. Pity? Said Gandalf. It was pity that stayed his hand. Pity and mercy, not to strike without need. I do not feel any pity for Gollum. He deserves death. Deserves death? I dare say he does. Many that live deserve death, and some that die deserve life. Can you give that to them? Then be not too eager to deal out death in the name of justice, fearing for your own safety. Even the wise cannot see all ends. Seeing Gollum in person, Frodo does pity him and follows Gandalf's prior advice. Smeagol becomes his guide and servant. Later, Frodo offers to give his life for his new acquaintance. Gollum has entered the Forbidden Pool, a holy site of the Gondorians, the penalty for which is death. Frodo convinces the soldiers to stay the hand of execution, even saying that if he fails to bring Gollum to them, "You may keep your bows bent, and shoot me at least." In the end, it is this sacrificial love which Frodo shows Gollum that rescues the quest. For in the moment of Frodo's failure, it is Gollum who unintentionally saves the day. Possessed by lust for the ring, Smeagol assaults Frodo and bites his finger off to gain it. Yet, in his adulation, Gollum slips into the fiery chasm below. This was not an accident. The other power willed it, so that, through Frodo's mercy, not his strength of will or determination, the ring would be destroyed. Through Gollum's free actions, the other power's will was done. In a world governed by the providence of the other power, it is the weak and merciful things that confound and destroy the dark powers. Therefore, the Lord of the Rings shows us what power looks like in a world that has a natural order and is governed by providence.